Welcome back. And today we are going to start a mind map series for polity for Prelims 2026. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to revise it for myself, and that's why I'm recording as well, so that if it could be useful for you, you can watch it too. And this PDF is provided by Only IS, and all thanks to them. There's a very beautiful PDF which is being provided here. I cannot directly share the PDF due to the copyright restrictions, but I hope that these videos will help you because I will be, dictating all the PDF through this, and I'll use the language in both English and Hindi. That will be in English. So let's start with the first topic, that is the historical background. We'll start with the Regulating Act of 1773. So as you know that there was a company rule between 1773 and 1858. After the revolt, there was the rule of crown, direct crown rule. So let's start with the Regulating Act 1773. What were the important core features of this act? The governor of Bengal was now the Governor General of Bengal. So that is the governors of Bombay and Madras were directly subordinated to him. Warren Hastings was the first Governor General, and executive councils there was of 4 members. Supreme Court of at the Calcutta was established, and if you can tell me in the comments that who was the first Chief Justice of India. First Chief Justice of this Supreme Court, which was established during the 1773 Act. And I hope you answer this question because it is one of the PYQs as well. And so let's start with the next act, that is the Amending Act of 1781. It exempted the Governor General and the servants from the jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Okay. Next was it excluded the revenue matters to appeal from the provincial court to the Governor General in Council, not the Supreme Court. Okay, so appeal is now the Governor General in Council, not the Supreme Court. So these were the 2 important features of the Amending Act. Next was the Pitt's India Act. You know that Pitts was the Prime Minister. So in that name, this act is the Pitt's India Act of 1784. So what exactly happened is that the Court of Directors, that were the commercial affairs, and Board of Directors were for the political affairs. So there are clearly separation of power between both of them, so that the commercial functions and the political functions. So commercial functions will be controlled by the Court of Directors, and the political functions will be controlled by Board of Control. Okay, so these were the differences were created by the Pitt's India Act. And now the company's territories were to be known as the British possessions in India. Okay, so now you'll see that slowly the British government is now interfering into the matters of East India Company, so that they could have a better control over them. Next was the British governors was supreme control over the company, so that the British government will have the supreme control of the company. As I just said, that they were now establishing their control. Sorry, I said the governor, it's the government. Next was the Amending Act of 1786. Now the Governor General can also be known as the Commander-in-Chief. It is a new position which is being granted to him. The powers of Commander-in-Chief is being vested in the Governor General. And it has the overriding powers on the council's decisions. So whatever the decisions councils make, the Governor General will have the overriding powers on them. Next was the Charter Act of 1793. I hope you know the basics, that when the Charter Acts were to be meant and what were these amending acts in between. So I hope you know that timeline. I'm not going into that kind of detail because it's a complete fast revision. So I'm just focusing on the important core aspects of these acts. So what was now the Charter Act of 1793? It simply extended the trade monopoly of the company for 20 more years. As you know that company were having the trade monopolies, that no other company from Britain will establish their affairs into the India, and where the East India Company is managing their affairs. So no company is allowed there. So that is known as the monopoly, and it was extended for 20 years more. Board of Control paid from the Indian revenues. Now the Board of Control, the salary of these controls which is established by the British government, has to be now paid by the Indian revenues. Not the money will not come from the Britain to give the salaries and accommodations and all those facilities to them. It will be the Indian tax, Indian money, which will pay their expenses. Next is Charter Act of 1813. What is did? It abolished the trade monopoly, but trade with China was continuous. So you just see that there was 20-year more monopoly given to the company, and in the next act, that is in 1813, it was abolished. But the tea trade was still going on with China, which is जिसको एक इजी लैंग्वेज हम लोग याद करते हैं कि चाय और चाइना चलता रहा 1813 तक, उसके लेकिन बाकी ट्रेड मोनोपोली को ख़त्म कर दिया गया. It asserted the sovereignty of British Crown over the company's territory in India. Now you just saw that uh, we have seen that in the Act of 1784, the company's territories were now known as British possessions. So it is different because now the actually the government is trying to name those territories as British possession so that it won't be called as the company's possession. It is a British possession. But here, the company is directly saying that it is the sovereignty of British Crown over the company's territories. I hope you know the difference between what is the called as sovereignty and what is the possession. It allowed the Christian missionaries to get into India and do their missionaries activities. In which act? 1813. It also has the provision for the spread of Western education. It authorized the local government to impose taxes. Companies' territories in India were held in for the trust of His Majesty and his heirs and successors. Basically, it is asserting the sovereignty of British Crown. Simple. Now, the next act, Charter Act of 1833, Governor General of Bengal is now the Governor General of India, and William Bentinck was the first one. Companies form commercial body to administrative body. I hope this is very clear to you. Now, the next act is Charter Act of 1853, established the separate Governor General's Legislative Council, Indian Legislative Council. So there was a complete separation between them. And the covenanted civil services was also open for Indians, and you can again tell me in the comments who was the first Indian to be get into the covenanted civil services. Now the local representation in Indian Legislative Council was 4/6 of local system that is open for the competition and the selection of civil servants. Now the next act, and I hope the acts are now over. After that, you know that there was several acts because now the crown will directly control the India. So I don't think so that there is a need of charter acts per se. So now the acts we will study after the acts of 1853 will be focusing on the crown rule. So now the British rule, sorry, the East India Company rule is now over, and from 1858 till 1947 independence there will be rule of the crown. And during the crown, the first law comes, that is the Government of India Act 1858. And you know what is the rationale behind this act and why this act come and why the crown rule has started. If you know this also, you can comment down, because if you forget this, this clearly shows that your basics are not clear. Okay, let's start with this first one. Government of India Act 1858. It is also known as Act for Good Government of India. These are very important points to be remembering because it might get asked in the examination directly. So I hope you understand this. The powers were transferred from company to the crown. Now the Governor General of India will be called as the Viceroy of India, and Lord Canning was the first Viceroy. It created the Secretary of State post for India and 15-member councils to assist him. It abolishes the offices of Viceroy and Secretary of State. Okay, I doubt this point. It abolished the offices of Viceroy and Secretary of State for India. I don't think so because it was established here. I think there is a mistake over here. I'll check it out. Now the next one is Indian Council Act 1861. So now the Indians were also non-official members to the Viceroy's Legislative Council, and it also restored the legislative powers to the Bombay and Madras presidencies, which you know that in the previous act, in the first Charter Act, here it was made subordinate to the Governor General. It also introduced the portfolio system. Portfolio system was introduced in Indian Council Act of 1861. And the powers to issue ordinances during the emergencies was granted. Indian Council Acts of 1892. Nomination of some non-official members to the central and provincial councils on the recommendation of provincial legislative council and local bodies respectively. So now the nomination of some non-official members were also allowed, and thus limited and indirect provisions for elections. So if the question has been asked that from which act the limited and indirect provisions for election have started, the answer would be Indian Council Acts of 1892. Now the next act is Indian Council Acts of 1909, which is also known as Montebello Reforms. And if you have read modern history, you very well know that what was the rationale behind Montebello Reforms and what was the background story behind this act. What it did was, it allowed the non-official majority in the provincial legislative council. It allowed the Indians in the Executive Council of Viceroy. Satyendra Prasad Sinha was the first one as a law member. It gave the separate electorate for Muslims, and the communal representation actually started from here. It also gave very limited power to discuss the budget. So these were the important features of the Indian Council Act, which is also known as the Parliamentary Reforms. Next was Government of India Act 1919, which is also known as Montagu-Cleveland Reforms. And I hope you know the background of behind this also. Try to connect with the modern history which you have read. And if you have not read modern history yet, when you will going to read that, keep this thing in mind as well. Demarcation of central and provincial subjects. Provincial subjects is further divided into transferred and reserved subject. That is the diarchy. It reduced the bicameralism and direct elections. Communal representation extended to the other communities as well. If you can tell me, if you want to do the active recall here, you can tell me that it is extended to which other communities than apart from being Muslims. Office of High Commissioners was created. Central Public Service Commission was set up. These were the important features of 1919, and this is also important because some of these features were also taken during our constitutional journey. Next was Government of India Act 1935. Again, this act is very important as per the constitutional development because a lot of features from this act would be taken into our constitution. It established the All India Federation, that is provincial and princely states as units. The powers were divided into federal, provincial and concurrent list. And keep doing the active recall and keep remembering that what were these acts, what were the provisions which are still in our constitution. So you will get a clear picture, and after doing this comparative analysis, your concepts will be highly strong. Next was the provincial autonomy, that is a responsible government in the provinces. Diarchy was abolished at the provincial level and established in the center. It established the RBI, the federal court, the provincial and joint public service commissions, and the bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces established of federal court. I hope you got this point. The key points we can simply highlight very quickly. All India Federation was established. Okay, provincials and princely state as units. Powers were divided into federal, provincial and concurrent list. Provincial autonomy was given so that the responsible government has to be established. Diarchy was abolished at provincial level and it was established in center level. Establishment of RBI, federal courts, provincial and joint public service commissions were established, which we also known as PCS these days. The bicameralism was given in some provinces. If you can remember this number as well. And the federal court was established. Remember, this federal court is not Supreme Court, which you will later know that. Okay, moving to the next, that is the Indian Independence Act 1947. It ended the British rule in India. The two independent dominions, India and Pakistan, were created. Freedom of princely states to either join the India or Pakistan or remain independent. And later you will study in modern history that what exactly happened there. There was a lot of turmoil going on. How did India manage to get some crucial princely states? These all stories are very interesting and I hope you will study it in the modern history. Okay, that's all for today's video. We have studied all the important acts till now, and I hope I was able to make you understand very quickly, because it's not an authoritative lecture as such. It is just a revision thing, so I have to keep it very crisp and clear, and that's why I aimed it. I hope you liked it. We'll see you in the next part, and we will revise the polity in this way only. And pardon my any mistakes, because I'm not a professional teacher. I'm just a student as you. I'm just revising for my prelims, and that is why I'm just recording it, so that I could also go back to the video and see if I forget anything. All right. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.